Good morning. It's Sunday, May 4th, 2025. You're watching Co-op for Two, and you've joined me for letter 2 of one of the earliest Dear Holmes cases from way back in 2019. A little bit of a different flavor to most of the Dear Holmes letters we've played, a little more puzzle focused. Let me check in with everyone, see how we're doing, see if anyone's up to anything interesting before we get started. YouTube says 17 concurrent viewers. I was hoping to do some playthroughs this weekend on the channel and catch up with some recording of reviews, but I'm juggling a bunch of things here, including really trying to finish up a new case for New York Noir that I've been working on that's almost done. I place tested the first 4 days, just needs some fine tuning. And Peter's been working on the map tools for New York Noir, so it's been busy and I've been reluctant to get on live. And doing a live stream playthrough is relaxing, but it is almost like procrastinating, so I have to be a little careful about that. All right, so to remind you what's going on in the case we got our first letter last week, and it was about the client here who's gone to Watson, who's writing to us as if we're Sherlock Holmes. That's a little bit of a, maybe that's the way they used to do these cases. But anyway, his grandfather was rich, died, doesn't want to spoil him by just leaving him all his money. So in his will, the rich grandfather says, look, you got to prove that you're worthy of my inheritance. You're going to have to earn it. And what does he give him? He gives him a certain time frame, like 36 hours. What is the actual timeline that he gives him? Follow the steps and you shall not fail. Okay, that was the first clue. Follow the steps of success, you shall not fail. He searched around his father's estate. He couldn't find anything. He calls in Watson, and Watson thinks to look at the steps, which they do. They mention a clock they looked at that they couldn't find anything about it. Here he says, most of the items are gone, but they did look at the steps. I guess I filed this in the wrong, put this in the wrong order. But anyway, they looked for a tour. I just want to read what it said about the clock again. There was a great standing clock in one corner of the parlor, massive beast that the old man had acquired, nothing inside it. Okay, so Watson notices the steps, and they look at them closely, and they find some scratchings on them that they couldn't figure out. And these were the scratchings, and we figured out that if you draw around the scratching, you get a Latin phrase, which translates to something like time flies great fortune, something like that. So we suspect that in the next letter, they're going to have found that as well. Or maybe we should assume that we've sent them this information. So that's what we're going to get today in letter number 2. Let's see how it describes this situation. I'm very curious how the structure of these letters are. Is it going to pretend that we have sent them that information as Sherlock Holmes? Or is it going to pretend that they've discovered it themselves? We're also going to see if we get another puzzle in today's letter. Okay, so 2 double-sided. Hey, actually, it's 1.5 size, short letter. Dr. Watson, from Dr. Watson. Okay, dear Holmes, I've set the hounds loose at Somerset House, and the search is on for details regarding Baron Maupertus's dubious birth. But Alderson assures me that your request cannot be found within the time limits you have set, based on the assumption that he is exaggerating yet again, as we have learned he is likely to do during that matter with the 4 leather targets. I held firm and informed him that I'll be back for the documents tomorrow. He made a half-hearted show of resistance, but Lestrade's pointed warning and reminder that knowledge of his gambling debts is known seemed to sharpen his focus. Lestrade plays the game very well when he needs to. This is a little callback to Sherlock Holmes stories. Seems like it's like, what is he talking about? But that's not our case. Now he's getting into our case. In the meantime, I've wanted to provide an update to you on the Polmain affair. Your wire was most timely, and we found a new clue in the search exactly where you suggested, but it only revealed a different puzzle, and the search continues. But first, I must tell you of a curious incident. After I received your reply yesterday regarding the mysterious carvings on the steps, and you really must tell me someday what they mean, and how you knew exactly where to direct our attentions, I summoned Edward to my consulting rooms. Before I could explain your suggestion of where to search next, he informed me he had been walking just that morning along High Holborn, returning from an errand for his employer, Mr. Notting, when he encountered Mrs. Hayes, his uncle's former housekeeper. He was quite surprised, as he'd understood, by way of a comment from Mr. Notting, who had delivered their £1,000 legacy, that both Mr. and Mrs. Hayes had departed London for Chelmsford, as soon as old Martin Polmain was laid to rest. Apparently, Mr. Hayes has a sister who moved years ago to Essex, and with no reason to remain in London, the butler and housekeeper had decided to join her. Edward explained that he hurried forward, hoping to have a word with Mrs. Hayes and to again express his thankfulness that she and her husband had cared for his grandfather so well over the years, and especially during his final days. And he admitted to me he hoped to question her about the matter of his grandfather's hidden fortune, for after all, hadn't they been in the house during the old man's last months? Not to mention during that time when the old man had carved the mysterious runes on the stair risers that served as the first clue towards locating the missing estate. Calling her name, he had the sense that she heard him, but chose to keep walking. He increased his speed and caught up with her, whereupon she had no choice but to acknowledge his presence. She seemed quite flustered, Edward said, and immediately created an awkwardness between them when none need have existed. He thanked her, as had been his intention, and she nodded, a genuine tear forming in the corner of her eye. They talked for a moment, then with a bit more friendliness, for after all, Edward had known her for such much of his life, and if she was not a mother to him, she had still been something of a friend and confidant during his formative years. With that in mind, Edward attempted to shift the conversation from details of Martin's final days, when the grandson was not even aware of the old man's illness. Based upon Martin's express orders, Mrs. Hayes was quick to assert, and general ponderings about how fast a man of health could decline, to specifics related to this unwanted treasure hunt upon which our client, for such we must consider him, has unwillingly found himself. And that was enough to make the old woman go silent, and in fact, more so in a somewhat dramatic fashion. When Edward mentioned the carvings upon the stairs, her eyes widened, and she took a step back, as if he had raised a hand against her. Shaking her head, she whispered, "Not yet. Not this way. I was told—" Whereupon she turned and ducked into the passing throng. Edward was tempted to follow her, he told me, but he was stunned, and also realized that whatever she knew was apparently a secret that caused her great anguish. Just then he was not prepared to force more of the same upon her. Instead, he returned to his office to find my message, whereupon he obtained leave from his employer, who again seemed to have some sort of knowing glint in his eye, indicating that he knows more than he's telling. I'm bound, and came around to my rooms. It was there that I showed him your cryptic wire. Examine the clock. As I said, I'm sure someday you will explain to me what you saw in those odd carvings that led you to suggest that, but in the meantime, we departed immediately for Gloucester Terrace, for there was only one clock that you could mean, the massive beast towering over the parlor. As I mentioned in my last letter, Edward said that his grandfather bought the clock when he acquired the house, or so Edward had always understood. He really knew no more about it, and feared that if there were some family legend connected with it that would be necessary to solving the riddle, well, he didn't know what it would be. He racked his brain as we traveled, hoping to recall an anecdote from his youth that he had foolishly ignored, but he could remember nothing. Back inside, the house was as dark and gloomy as I recalled. However, we ignored it as we made our way directly to the clock, which stood over us a good 7 feet from top to bottom. We had looked through it the other day, but it was clear there was nothing hidden inside and nothing that could be a hidden cavity, although I was wishing that you were there because I trusted your ability to make certain of that fact far more than mine. However, as I looked the thing up and down, I noticed upon the floor some minute scratches, where it had apparently been pivoted to turn it away from the wall. Perhaps I thought something was hidden behind it, or possibly there was a receptacle or safe in the wall hidden from sight. I pointed to the scratches, and Edward immediately understood. He helped me shift the clock, which really wasn't that heavy at all, considering its size. This really wasn't a surprise in hindsight, as it's mostly filled with empty space. We eagerly looked behind it to find nothing. The space between clock and wall was empty, and no seams or openings in the wall indicated a place to conceal anything there. And then I noticed fresh scratches in the wood at eye level, in the dark, varnished wood of the clock's smooth rear face. I glanced at Edward, and he at me, and then he gave a rueful laugh. We both understood immediately that, once again, this was beyond us. Here, for your consideration, is the latest message. As before, I'm forwarding this message tonight, along with the documents that you requested from your scrapbooks about the Baron's former servants. Please let me know whatever I can do to assist, and any thoughts that you might offer about Holmes' problem will be much appreciated, as the time to solve the riddle is rapidly coming to a close. In the meantime, I'll turn my attention to this cipher, although we both know the chances are likely that the solution will most certainly be provided through your understanding rather than mine. All right, so that's it. We've got a cipher. But before we get into this odd-looking cipher, mostly eyes, in fact, yeah, like almost looks like Roman numerals, but we also have a clock, so we should consider that. Before we get into this, I do want to mention that we have our first break here from the idea that it's just going to be pure standalone puzzles. And that's due to this little anecdote about running into the, well, two parts actually. The first part is running into the previous servant and her very strange reaction. So now we have a more classical Dear Holmes mystery where it's not a puzzle, but a story that is intriguing that we don't know how to understand. She doesn't want to be seen by the grandson. She's forced to acknowledge him. She's awkward. I was thinking, oh, is she in town? She's supposed to be out of town, but she's in town. Is she trying to steal the money? But then there's a tear in her eye. They were friends. And she has a very strange reaction. She says, he tells her about the stairs. He tells her about the scratching on the stairs. And her eyes widen. She says, not yet, not this way. I was told, ... Then she runs away. And then his employer seems to know about this, which is odd. Edward's employer. Are we sure this guy's actually dead? I mean, there was a strange circumstance where he suddenly got sick. Do we know that he's dead? And here we hear about how they're supposed to be gone. They each got £1,000. Why are they saying no, not yet? Is it because they didn't know he died? They've been dismissed, but were they dismissed before he died? Are they just, is this servant just learning that he died? A genuine tear. She seemed flustered. Genuine tear was in her eye. Then they talk about the final days. When he wants to talk about the treasure, they don't want to. She doesn't want to talk about it. Why doesn't she want to talk about it? She actually just runs away. That's so weird. They've been given £1,000, so I wouldn't think they'd be upset about not getting the money. All right, let's look at this cipher. Before we try to solve it, let's see what we can observe here. We've got a very small alphabet of letters. O-I-C-V-X. That's it. 5 letters in this entire cipher. So it's going to be a small message. And then I'm just looking at the eyes. 3 eyes, 3 eyes, 3 eyes, 3 eyes, and then 2. 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 3. And in fact, looks like there's some real repeating patterns here. Like, look at this. V-I-I-O-X. V-I-I-O. V-I-I-O. VIIO. So are C and O used in Roman numerals? Could this be Roman numeral? If you had to guess, you'd guess it might be clock related. You often see Roman numerals on clocks. Let's see how many letters we've got here. Maybe we'll transcribe it here so it's a little easier. OICVIIXICV. Maybe rather than transcribe it, I should just try to make a scan of it. All right, let's count then instead. Five, 6, 7, 8, not times 4, 39. 39, so you might imagine that would be broken into 13 three-letter segments, which is an intriguing little break. If we are looking at groupings of 3, no reason we have to be, but it is intriguing that it breaks naturally into 13 three-letter segments. What other observations can you make? What about frequencies of letters? They almost look regular, but okay. We've got a lot of I's. Then looks like the next common letter would be a V, followed by the X's and the I's and O's may be most common, then V. What might you expect? So you might expect something like 13 letters. If it's Roman numerals have an odd thing, right, where they go up and down in a specific way. Like, could these be letters following the same? Could these be letter numbers? But there isn't an O in Roman numerals. Let me see if, so here would be if we broke this into 3-letter groups, but the other possibility is that one of these letters is breaking it into groups. But it wouldn't be an O, because O is our starting number, our starting letter here, so that would be unlikely initial break. Let me just count how many of each we have in case one of them looks like a natural word break. OICV X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 O's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 I's. 1, 2, 3, 4 C's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 V's. And X's, we have what? 1, to only 2 X's. So now I thought we had more. 2639. Okay, so there's 39 letters. That's all of them. We didn't miscount. Many more I's than anything else. So few X's. That's odd. Okay. I mean, the O's look like they could be natural word breaks, except that they're starting out with an O. That seems wrong. What about other clues? In our first message, we got lots of other clues about the steps and stuff. So we know it's in a clock. He was trying to remember a little saying for when he was a child. He couldn't remember it. They look behind it. Scratches. Doesn't seem like there's any other clues here. So if we wanted the O's to be word breaks, you might imagine it could be read backwards. Then that O would be a final ending word break. But why would you put a word break at the end? Melissa is giving us some Roman numeral equivalents, but no O. Let's see. It's going to have to be a message, right? It's going to have to be a message. And with just so few letters, there aren't that many messages you could write. So like if you map these to numbers, you'd have to map them to letters. And if C is 100, that's not going to work. They're scratched at eye level, so they're not going to be upside down. It is a clock. You might imagine them on a circle. Boy, that's going to be a short message, though. What do you make of these? There's something very odd about how repetitive it is. VIIOV, VIIOV, VIIOI. Like, why are we... Let's assume for a second that this is a repeating letter. VIIO, and then VIIO. Imagine this is a double letter, like 2 L's. One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. V-I-I-I-O. If we go 5, 6, 7, 8, if we turn this into a letter 8, what letter of the alphabet is 8? E is 5, E, F, G. Is it H? Because H is not going to double up. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. G could double up. G could absolutely double up. And what if O is the word break now? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Oh, that's not good. It's H, doesn't work. H is not going to double up. Well, that's unfortunate. Here's another V-I-I-O, though. It's whatever. If that's a letter, that's a letter. And then this V would be its own letter. But then this would be a letter. That's going to be hard to make into a letter. I don't like the idea of O's as word breaks, because why would it be starting with an O? So that doesn't make sense to me. Except what if every word starts with an O? What if that's how it works? What if our words start with the O's and then end with the O's? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Sorry. 1, 2. 7 words. 7 words starting with the one letter that isn't in Roman numerals. That's intriguing. But how do you make use of a C that's a 500? And if you're if you have such a small message, do you really waste a letter for each word? Seems very wasteful. So let's consider some other things. Let's take a pause from trying to solve it. Let's consider some other things. We've been looking at this as if this is a standalone cipher, right? But that may be an unreasonable assumption. It could be based on some other information that we have. And what other information do we have? Well, we do have something. We do have a block of text. A block of text from our decrypted message. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 letters. Well, that's not the 39 that I was hoping for. 24 letters. 24 letters. Okay, so, but you could imagine, for example, using this as a key into this, but the fact that it's such a short alphabet, it's very hard to use an arbitrary key with such a short alphabet. Are there any other clues? Time flies, great fortune. He tells her about, no, he does. He just tells her about the carving on the stairs and not the clock. She says, not yet, not this way, I was told. Grandfather bought the clock when he acquired the house, or so he always understood. He racked his brain as he traveled, hoping to recall an anecdote from his youth that he can't remember. Some anecdote. Lots of theories here. Melissa says, is this message also going to be in Latin, since the last was, and could be Roman numerals we're dealing with? 24 hours in a day, says Joe J, when I was looking at the message here. That's an interesting thought. How would you use those C's, though? Three eyes in a row. 3 eyes in a row. I'm just cannot stop looking at this duplicated VIIO, VIIO, VIIO. That's so strange. It's so odd. Here's another VI. Here's another CVII, CVII, CVII. Like, why is there so much repeating here? Why is there so much repetition? That is just not natural. I'll tell you what else I notice. Look at this. Okay, so we noticed here VIIOIC, VIIOIV. Look at this. VIIOIC. It's almost like it's wrapping around. VIIOIC, VIIOIX, VIIO. VIIOVO. V-I-I-O-I-C, V-I-I-O-I-C, V-I-I-O-X-I-C, V-I-I-O-V-I-I. So much repetition. Is it possible that... So the last letter was in Latin, and the last letter was in Latin and looked like maybe if you were trying to solve it, you'd have to look up online Latin or in a book to figure it out. You could imagine, if those are the ground rules here, that what we could get out of this are a set of numbers. Like, just as a thought experiment, let's say you could decode this into 7 Roman numeral numbers that were quite high, like 107, 57, whatever. Is it possible that those numbers could have some meaning somewhere? Bible verses or years? The other thing that you have to consider in the world of the game, like, how is this short message going to tell them where to look next? Is there something about this? Like, is this woman in town because the next step of this treasure hunt involves talking to Miss Hayes? Mr. and Mrs. Hayes had departed from London. Like, is this something about Ask Miss Hayes, and is that why she's... Maybe you move the hands of the clock according to the numbers. Now, that is a very intriguing idea. That is a very intriguing idea. So what if these were numbers of the clock? You could even imagine putting the letters around the number of clocks, but what if you're just supposed to put the numbers of the clock? It's an interesting idea. But, so how did Roman numerals work? You can go, if you go IV, you're subtracting. If you go VI, you're adding. If you go from high to low, you're adding. Low to high, you're subtracting. Low to high, you're subtracting. So what if C is 10, not 100? So what if we've got like a 9 and then a 7 and then, but X is 10? What would the C be then? How do we make numbers with a C, which is worth 100? Holmes says 13 and 3, 13 three-letter characters. I mean, that's what I mapped out here. Three-letter characters, but it seems odd, especially since it doesn't capture our repeating patterns. Surely there's got to be some logic to the repeating patterns. VII. Many of these looks like they could be broken into numbers. It's just that the C's give us hiccups. Like there's our 5 for our V. There's our 8 and our 8 for the VIII. Well, what do we do? What if, can we break at the C's as well? What if we, is it, how many do we have of the C's? 4 C's, 7 O's and 7 V's. That's a little interesting. Let me just see something. The O doesn't make sense and the C doesn't make sense. The O doesn't make sense and the C doesn't make sense. If we get rid of those, what have we got? I, VII, XI, VIII, VIII, V, VIII, I, XIII, V, VII. We get rid of the C's. 1, 7, 9, 8, 8, 5, 8, 1. IV is supposed to go down. Lower. Have I done this wrong? XI is 11. Add. XII is 13. I don't like that. 5, 7. So if we do it this way, we've got nothing going up. Never do we have an I and an X. That's kind of interesting. And do we always alternate here? No. Sometimes we have an O and an O without a C. And I was hoping we wouldn't have anything over 12. We did map these to letters. It would be A, and then G, and 11. Where's my thumbs? I don't think this is what we're looking at, but let me just check here. Eleven is a K, 8 is an H, 5 is an E. Okay, that doesn't work. And it doesn't make sense that they would all be low valued letters either. Hmm. Strange that it's such a short, small alphabet. Something very. What should that tell us? Well, such a small alphabet. What is that telling us? Hmm. Hmm. Just searching out for anything else we got in this letter that would give us some clue. Notice the boss, Mr. Nodding, seems to know something about what's going on, and he was at the street specifically for his boss, who knows something more than he should when he runs into the housekeeper. Like, was this a planned run-in? Chelmsford with a C, Essex with an X. I feel like I'm diving into the deep end here. He sees her. Let's see. He encountered her. He was surprised. He'd understood by way of a comment from Nodding, who's this other guy who seems to know more than he should, that they were both departed. Tries to have a word with her. He calls her name. She hears him, but she keeps walking. He confronts her. She has a tear. She goes silent. He mentions the stairs, and she says, she reacts as if he raised a hand against her. Not yet, not this way. Hmm. He returned, whereupon he obtained leave from his employer, who again seemed to have some sort of knowing glint in his eye, indicating he knows more than he's telling. There's an anecdote about the clock from his youth that he had foolishly ignored. So there is some anecdote that he knows about that could be relevant that he had ignored. Maybe some... Is there some anecdote about a clock that we should know? It's a grandfather clock. He's a grandfather, and it's a grandfather clock. That's interesting. Oh, wonders in grandpa. It's a grandfather clock. He's the grandfather. They look at it upside down. They move it. They see scratches. At eye level, in the dark varnished wood of the clock's smooth rear face, the clock's smooth rear face. Are they saying that these are directly opposite the hands of the clock on the back of it? Are they trying to say that they're at that level? Indicating that maybe these are related to the positions of the clock? Like if you wrote the numbers of the clock above these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We know you'd get to 24. We know there's 39, so you'd get to 36. And then you'd have to start 1 through 12, 1 through 12, 1 through 12, and then 1, 2, 3. Oh, would that help you though? I can't help but think it has something to do with this way this woman reacted. Let's just take a look at our first letter where the clock is mentioned. And maybe for anything else. Maybe I'll try to put this in the proper order, although I can't really, can I? All right, let me just look at this again. Young man, his grandfather takes him in. I don't know why this air conditioner is making so much noise. Maybe you can't hear it though. Where's my coffee? So normally we would just wrap this up here after an hour. But I think maybe we'll just spend a little bit of time on it. What could the message be? What other items in the room or house could it be pointing to? It's a very good question. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't something like if the message wasn't to like ask Miss this woman's name, like if that's why she's in town, because he's supposed to ask her something. Miss Hayes, Hayes or something. Or nodding. Let's see. I just want to, since we have nothing else to go on, I'm trying to go back to this. Okay, he's taken in by his paternal grandfather, his only living relative. The grandfather owns an old house at Gloucester Terrace. The grandfather wants him to earn his inheritance. Curious history. He's born in Truro, 1805. So there's a year that could get mentioned somewhere. Father was a woodworker, ship's carpenter. Here's another year, 1828. 1805, 1828. Like you could imagine if we found in that coded message the number 1805 and then 1828, you could imagine it would be an index into this word and an index into this word. But how many letters could we get? That's an awful lot of wasted code. But okay, maybe I'll just write those down for the hell of it, in case we really are dealing with numbers. We've got an 1805 and an 1828. That would be devious and wasteful. Okay, so he makes his way. The grandfather makes lots of money. Okay, then we have another date, and where he and his wife lived, she died in the 1860s. That's not much help. He took in the kid. Okay, Clayton Notting, who the kid works for, is the father's old friend. So he could be in on this whole scheme. Nodding TT. I wonder if we shouldn't revisit the idea that we have doubles and ask ourselves what would happen if this 8 somehow mapped to a T. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not quite. 7, 8. Quite. Like ask nodding or something. But okay. Let's keep going with this. Okay, until a few weeks ago, began to decline. So he goes to his good friend Nodding, revises his will, and leaves a letter. Okay, so the man the old grandfather has a funeral, and Nodding summons Edward to tell him about the challenge. So no sign that he's seen the dead body. This could be another case here where the grandfather is not really dead. But I guess we should assume he's dead. But I think Nodding is in on this. He had the greatest affection. I'll test your mind instead. follow the steps of success, you shall not fail. And that was our first clue, was steps. Unless Edward could work through a series of messages within a month, he doesn't get the money. One final hint. You must begin your search in the house which you were raised. That's where we found the steps. He searches for it. The deadline is April 13th. He goes to Sherlock Holmes to get help. Let's read a little bit more. His grandfather maintained a number of servants. They departed or passed away. There are only two left. A butler named, let's make sure we, come on. I don't know how tricky this case is. So we're given the butler's full name here. Where is it? I'll test your mind. Deadline April 13th. Number of servants. Okay, so Silas Hayes is the butler, and Notting is the lawyer. Clayton Notting. Are we told what the full name of the woman Hayes is? Housekeeper wife, Mrs. Hayes. That's all we know. He gives them £1,000 to send them on their way, but she's mysteriously still in town. Edward had lived nearby. Goes to the house. Quick tour. Most things are gone. Then we get this message, which could be relevant for us decoding the numbers. They go through. It's mostly empty and dusty. Tries to look at the house. Favorite chair in a rear study. Edward pointed to a favorite chair in his grandfather's rear study. Without destroying it, we examined it to no avail. So you could imagine this message says something like, look under the chair. Then they look at the massive beast that the man proudly acquired when he bought the house. There's nothing in it. There's a desk, which is empty. And then they look at the stairs by following the first clue. They find the scratchings. So if you were doing a normal treasure hunt, then you might very well imagine that this clue isn't just a clue to look at the clock, but some other piece of information. Time flies, great fortune. Okay. Marty Moose says, oh, one, see this. Anybody follow? Okay, don't know what you're saying. Wouldn't mind making a scan of this so I could write on it. I do think it's useful to ask ourselves, what could this message say? But it could be anything pointing to the next clue. That's what we have to assume. It's pointing us to the next thing to do, but it could say something like, look under the chair. It could say, ask Clayton nodding. It could say, ask Mrs. Hayes. It could say something in Latin about anything. It could be standalone, or it could refer back to our encrypted message. Maybe we can take this out. Now, this was arranged by, let's just look at this again. This was arranged with 4 rows of stairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay. This was this 4x7 grid of stairs. So you could imagine this could be indexing into here, but how could it? We do have a clock. The clock is naturally thought about as a circle. This was tricky enough to require Latin to decode. That scares me that this could require some outside knowledge. Again, whenever I get into this situation, I try to ask myself, rather than trying to solve it in a one-shot kill, to see what we can observe. To me, these doubles here seem so suspicious. I wish I could scan this and make copies of this. Well, that's what we'll do. If we stop playing it today, we'll make some copies. But there is just something about the repeating that is so suspicious. V-I-I-O, V-I-I-O, V-I-I-O. That's just too suspicious. And ending on these O boundaries. And here again, well, no, here this is triple I, V-I-I-I-O, V-I-I-O, V-I-I-I-O. That's too suspicious. And the spacing of the O's is also very suspicious. Like, it feels like they're words. Marty says O's are a break and C's are a break. You have to be more clear about whether you're saying you see something or you're guessing or you have solved it and you're giving hints. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're trying to posit an idea. We already looked at the idea that O's and C's are word breaks, and I got this set of numbers. If I look at numbers, I tried to convert that into letters. We made note of some interesting dates. 1805, 1828. So yeah, there's something tempting about using the C's and O's as breaks, since those don't seem like normal Roman numerals and everything else seems clean, but don't know how to make use of it. And where these are, look like there might be times, this 13 doesn't seem right. I don't know what to do with these. What if C was like clockwise? What if they're telling us go clockwise, go counterclockwise? Or just, there's no way you get an arbitrary message with so much repetition of symbols. There's something really weird about that. You absolutely could imagine. He says the clock is mostly empty space, which wasn't that heavy considering its size. Like, what if this is a combination that you're supposed to turn the hands to? Then we would just be getting an arbitrary set of numbers. That's awfully tricky. Time flies. Like, could it? It could be giving us an arbitrary, like a safe, turning the clock into a safe. Then this would just be giving us arbitrary numbers. How on earth could we be expected to know when we've got that? Surely not. Surely it's going to be a message. And then this 13 would not be a number of something you can set. A clock doesn't have an AM and a PM. So that doesn't really make sense. Where's our other divider? Okay, hold on. Let's see. If there's 4 C's, could the C's be separating? Like if we use C's as our breaks, there's 4 C's. Is there any sense in which we could generate like the 3 digits of a safe cracking code. Look at all this without a C. The way this wraps around, I find very suspicious. VIIOIC. VIIOIC. IIOV. IIOIC. IIOX. IIOV. OV. OV. OI. OV. OI. OX. Huh. Any reason why we should read this backwards rather than forward? I mean, if we do our breaks here with the C's and the O's, and we go backwards, what do we get? 3, 5, 7, 1, 2. But you wouldn't write I, V. Would you, are all of these things you would write? If we put our breaks at the O's and the C's, these are all valid Roman numerals, huh? Like you would write VII, XIII, VII. It's a little, it is a little telling that these are all valid, these would all be valid Roman numeral codes. Does anyone find that suspicious? Not only that, but it gives us our doubles. Is this too big of a coincidence? Is there any, so I use this for the 8th letter of the alphabet. Is there any, and there are other things we could do. We could start somewhere and just advance 7, advance, like why is there a, I guess what you'd have, the first thing you'd have to ask yourself, I suppose. All right, let's think of it this way for a second. Let's say we conclude that this is too big of a coincidence, that these look like small numbers. This 13 is a little bit suspicious, but the fact that these are all valid Roman numerals, they don't go in the weird order, is very tempting. If you believe that's true, then the next thing you'd have to answer is why are we getting these combinations of O's and C's if we're right that these are word breaks? Why do we have that? Like C counterclockwise, clockwise, is there something going on there? Like why are O's and C's are breaks? And okay, I think this is right. This feels right to me. That basically what we have is O1 C7, O11, C8, O8. In other words, we've got pairs. We've got an O or a C, which is leading us to and combining with the Roman numeral. So there's our O8, and then we have O5, O8, O1, C13. That seems weird to me. O5 and C7. And with that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 letters or words. But note that they don't alternate. So it can't be like, it's not like pairs of hour hand, minute hand, hour hand, minute hand. And we've got a 13, which doesn't really make sense. And we're starting with a letter. So it's hard. It's not like it's saying start at the letter A and then go clockwise, counterclockwise. This feels kind of right to me that these would be the pairs. Time flies, great fortune, 1805. 1828. How many pairs do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 words, for lack of a better term. Or letters, more likely. It can't be a code. That's too many. It can't be like a safe combination. It's just too many for that. It's too many for that. More likely, hmm, Are there clock ciphers that we don't know about? Are there some common things known as clock ciphers? Let's see if we do a search. Now, look at this. This is interesting because we have two, it uses two wheels, and we have C's and O's. So if you imagine that one of these O's is referring to one wheel and the other one was referring to another one. This is a very obscure code I have never seen before. Colon separates each letter, 2 zeros separate each word. This just seems pretty odd to me, especially since almost all of our values here just go from 1 max out at 13. That doesn't really make sense. But if we were using this code, it would be B. But then what would be the C if it's not telling you to shift to the other wheel? Doesn't really work for us. Doesn't really work for us. Why use C as a separator? It's a valid Roman numeral. O is the only out of place character. Well, I can't tell what you're saying, but the main reason we use the C is because we don't understand how to use these. If a C is not the separator, then we don't know how to use this whole sequence of letters till we get up to the next O. That's the reason we tried using the C, because it makes the breaks and little segments much more manageable. If we try to say a C is a 100, then we get very weird high numbers that we don't know what to do with. It's not a crazy idea to try to figure out what the C's mean. Open or closed, I like that idea. O for open, C for closed. That's a very interesting idea. Still though, how would we use open, close? That's fun. I like the idea of asking what the O's and C's are. But what would that refer to? I'm not opposed to asking what these numbers would be if it was just the O's that were the separators. Like, what is this number? ICXIIOV. Like, is that a valid Roman numeral? Because that doesn't make sense to me. Oh, I don't have my keyboard. Okay. So the point is, if you think that the O's are the separators and not the C's, then, for example, you've got C, V, I, C, V, I, which is a 107. But then you've got X, I, V, I. Okay, let's just see here. Well, if you think that just the O's are the separators, no, I guess that's wrong. If you think the O's are the only separator, then at the beginning, your first word is I, C, V, I, which is invalid. And that's why we have the C's as separators. Okay. O also doesn't work well as a separator. Well, it does. It absolutely does if the intuition is right that what we've got is pairs. We've got an O and O or a C, and then we've got followed by a Roman numeral. And Marlene was already suggesting something in the vein that feels right. Like, are we saying like clockwise, counterclockwise? Like clockwise 1, counterclockwise 7, clockwise 11, counterclockwise 8, clockwise 8, counterclockwise 8, clockwise 8, 1, clockwise, and then counterclockwise C, or open, close. But notice they don't alternate. So it would have to be some system where you could say O1, O1, C7, O11, C8, O8, O5, O8, O1, C13, O5, C7. For example, what I was trying to do is trying to look at if it was saying like go alphabet letter 1 and then alphabet letter from the back -7. Alphabet letter 11 from the front, then from the back 8, from the front 8, from the front 5, from the front 8, from 1. That's what I was trying to look at here. I don't think that's going to work, but something like that could work. So O1 is A, C7 is T, O11 is K. That's from the front. C8 would be S. O8 would be H. O5 would be E. Well, that doesn't seem right. And if you were going from the back, that would be a Z. So none of that works. I do like this idea, though, that we've got Roman numerals preceded by C's and O's. I don't love it. But it does seem reasonable. The other thing that seems reasonable is our triplets. OIC, VII, OXI, CVI, IOI. What about our duplicates? What about so if we look at our common things, we see a lot of VII, VII, 888. It is a little interesting that the 888, the 8s come up in our years quite a bit. right? We had years that were like 1858, 1805, 1828, 1805. We've got a bunch of eights in our years. Here's 3 8s. Here's 3 8s. Here's our 5. No 2. Open, close. What would be an other way of OCs? Maybe Latin. What about anecdotes? Maybe we could search ourselves for some grandfather clock anecdote. There's a childhood thing about the clock jumped over the moon. Grandfather clock. How the grandfather clock got its name. And then the grandfather clock song. Is this some famous song that you would have known? 100 years ago in Piercebridge, England. I don't know if this is some bullshit or if this is something. 1875 American songwriter happened to be staying. He's told the story of the own clock. Decided to compose a song about the coincidence that the clock stopped forever the moment its elder owner passed away. Lyrics sold over 1 million copies. Grandfather's clock. And there are the lyrics. Could C be for chorus? O1 is my. Chorus 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be my he. That doesn't work. Tempting though. Hmm. If you were expecting this to be letters, then you might guess that the most frequent letter would be an E, which would, you would guess this one. But then you've got a C and an O. All right, rather than try to solve it, let's do the thing again. If you were, I like the idea of these prefixes O's and C's, but it's confusing that we've got a bunch of O's in a row. So it's not symmetrical pairs. And this 13 sure jumps out as being odd. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So here's an idea. Imagine we have two keywords like hello world, and that the O's are indexing into one of them and the C's are indexing into another one. Then you'd need the first word to have at least 8 letters and the second word to have at least 13. But that would give you a message. But what second letter would we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Seems like a very crazy idea, but okay. So if this was the word that the C is indexing into, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. C7 is an A. C8 is a T. Let's do it this way. This doesn't seem right to me, but I still am intrigued by O1, C7, O11, C8, O8, O5. O1, C7, O11, C8, O8, O5, O8, O1, C13, O5, C7. So if we broke it up into these, and these are letters, you could imagine the O's index one word, maybe a word starting with O, And the C's index a second word starting, maybe a word starting with C. Or in phrases with a C. So the question then would be, what's our C phrase and what's our O phrase? And the C has to have 13 parts, letters or words. Doesn't feel like it matches this. Is there anything that it would naturally match? We have Sealis and we have Clayton. Clayton nodding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If we use Clayton's name as the C, what would we get? Seems very unlikely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. C7 is an N. C8 is also an N. C13 would be a G. C7 would be an N. What is this one supposed to be? I like this idea, though. DJ Moneycut says, draw a clock face. A to L on the numbers 1 to 12, then make a second clock. I like this idea. But think about what you're saying. You're just saying that O is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is sort of what we were trying to do with the clock cipher idea, but we sort of bombed out. So now we would get O1 would be A, C7 would be S. This is going to be a K, then it's right. It's not. I thought it was going to be a K. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is a K. 10, 11, 12. I think we got it with the help of DJ Moneycut. Okay, so then this is a K. Ask. C8 would be a T. O8 is an H. O5 is an E. O8 is an H. O1 is an A. C13 is a Y. This is going to be Ask the Haze. All right, so I want to point out how logical our attack was and how we were circling around it. But DJ Moneycut really came through and helped do that final piece of the puzzle. But let's take a moment to appreciate how we really circled around the solution and figured it out. So that's pretty satisfying. So let me point out a whole bunch of things here. First of all, we searched for clock cipher and we got something tantalizingly close to what was actually used, right? 2 wheels with the 2 sets of letters. In fact, maybe if we had, so this did seem like it was tempting, right? But we couldn't quite, we sort of got lost with the nomenclature here. Then we did very much like this idea that the O's and the C's were the separators and the prefixes, and we came up with this list here that felt right. It felt like it was too big a coincidence that the Roman numerals were giving us valid Roman numerals numbers, so we came up with this list. And then we struggled with the idea that, okay, sometimes we've got O prefixes, sometimes we've got C prefixes. They're not perfectly paired. That led us to the idea that we've got 2 keywords, an O keyword and a C keyword, and that these are indexes into those keywords. Then the question is, what is the O and what is the C? Then we also noted that when we ran into Miss Hayes, she says it's not time yet, and she's acting suspicious, and we actually theorized that this message might be telling us to talk to one of them. And then where we left off and got our last piece that we were having trouble with is figuring out what the O indexes into and what the C indexes into. And we noted that the C has to be up to 13. That sort of threw us a little bit. And DJ Moneycut came into the chat and said that the O's and the C's are not keywords, but simply splits in half of the alphabet. Now, I want to point out what I tried to do very early on is have the O's index into the alphabet, which would have gotten us these letters. So I had these letters. But what I tried to do with the C's is go backwards from the Z. That's what I thought maybe the O's and C's were alternating. So I was trying to use this as the O's, but then I was trying to use the C letters as the going backwards into the alphabet. And instead, the C letters are the second half of the alphabet. Well, that was my writing that's been erased here. There was my A and so on. Okay. So there was my A, K, H. All right. So well, pretty cool. It's pretty cool that we did solve it. It took us 2 hours here. The answer is to ask the Hayes. Rob says perseverance paid off. Good choice to stick with it. And we got lucky that DJ Moneycut is here. I'm not sure how long it would have taken us to get that without DJ Moneycut. But the most satisfying thing for me is that how many of our intuitions were correct and how we were circling around this. It's tricky though, because if you split this wrong, if you put the M here and then the NOPQRSTYZ here, you would still get a 13-letter sequence here, but every other letter would be wrong, just like it was wrong when I started to do it with every other one. But this might have been, I might have been well advised to try my idea of forward alphabet backward and just write it out. And then maybe if we got every other letter wrong, like here, if we had done that, let's say we had done that, let's say this part, which I had already guessed, was correct. If we had written that, we would have gotten something like that. A blank, K blank. This is as far as I got, but I had like a G over here. But if we had kept doing that, this sequence of O's here would have gotten us H, E, H, A, blank, E, S. And I wonder if we had gotten this. No, this would have been an H. I wonder if we had gotten this, whether that wouldn't have been enough to make us realize we were on the right track. I'm not sure. I think it is a good lesson, though. When you start to decode, it happens a lot here that we start to decode and it looks wrong. Like when I was decoding this, using this, I got A, G, K, and I said, nope, and I stopped. And I do think frequently you're better off like doing it all and then being able to look at it and see, oh, some of that might make some sense. Sometimes the word boundaries mess you up, etc. All right, well, I especially like that we were right that it is instructions to talk to Mrs. Hayes, which explains her saying, no, not yet, not yet. DJ Moneycut says, seeing A blank K helped me guess it might be ask. Yeah, I think, well, if we had seen A blank K, we might have guessed ask, because that's what we thought the kind of message was. Unfortunately, when I did my test decoding, it wasn't A blank K. What I got was A G K. And that's not quite right. But again, I think if we had written this out with my wrong guess that these were backwards letters here, then we would have got A, G, K. We've got to have gotten letters here. And maybe we would have been able to look at that and say every other letter is wrong. In fact, we would have been able to see that this letter is the same as this letter. All right. It doesn't happen that often, but when we persevere beyond what is reasonable, 2 hours in this case, and we solve it, boy, that's a good feeling. Every one of these causes us to spend 3 hours treading water. Like one little victory is enough to make you waste 5 hours of time and fail. But the one time when it pays off is quite satisfying. Thank you to DJ Moneycut for giving us the last piece of the puzzle. But congratulations to everyone who stuck with it. I like that we weren't just flailing around. We really did make progress. All right, so we're going to send off a letter to Watson, ask the Hayes. Could have just asked them anyway, just in case. She did seem suspicious, like she had the information for us. That's why she was saying not yet. Like, you're asking me before you know you should ask me. That's what she was saying. All right. Pretty good. I'll see you all next week for the next letter. We expect 4 of these. before the solution. So we're halfway through 2 more. Boy, that one really required some effort on our part. I'll see you next week.